A very warm welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Yusuf Narab Usman. The top stories first. Farmer groups express confidence on military operations to curb banditry in northwest and north central parts of Nigeria. National Emergency Management Agency speaks on measures to mitigate flood disasters across Nigeria. Federal Ministry of Education released guidelines for reopening of schools after COVID-19 pandemic closure. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 targets at least one sample collection center per local government area, having enough oxygen nationwide as the number of hospitalized patients or other persons increase, while leveraging on the pandemic to support local production of PPEs and other critical supplies. At Monday's briefing, the Federal Ministry of Education released guidelines for the opening of schools after the COVID-19 pandemic closure.
Anyone above 60 years or persons with morbidities such as hypertension, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, cancers, etc. should stay at home and avoid social events as they are at highest risk of infection.
Minister of Health Dr. Osagi Ihanire urges state governments to prepare more bed spaces as COVID-19 cases increase, while the PTF increases community engagement with religious and traditional leaders to circulate risk communication at the grassroots.
Medical services by doctors in the state were resolved, and the strike action has been called off. We plan to replicate the success in Cross River State with other states of the country where the need for policy alignment is found to be wanting.
We cannot rule out airborne transmission, and therefore we have to act in a precautionary way, assuming that this is also possible given the new evidence that is emerging. Why is this important? It means that staying together in closed spaces, in clusters, such as in restaurants or in small rooms without very poor ventilation, increases the risk of transmission.
Moving forward, we will ensure reinforcement of non-pharmaceutical interventions because it's very clear there's been a progressive and gradual drift in compliance.
The team also insists that all government offices shall continue to hold virtual meetings in their offices, especially where participants exceed 4 persons, and suspend all unnecessary travels for meetings. Members of the political class to be guided in the gathering for whatever reason. Farmer groups have expressed confidence with the ongoing military operations aimed at curbing activities of bandits in the northwest and the north central parts of the country. This is coming as the House Committee on Agriculture describes activities of bandits as capable of destabilizing the nation's agricultural development. Musa Babaliu reports that the Chairman House Committee on Agriculture stated this at a distribution of input to farmers in Abuja.
Farmers in the northwest and the north central Nigeria are ranked the major producers of grains in the country. For instance, farmers in the regions have successfully pushed the country's maize production from 8 million tons in 2015 to more than 18 million tons in 2019. The insecurity in the northwest and central, occasioned by banditry, farmers say is constituting a threat to the farming activities.
This issue of insecurity affected many farmers because there are some areas, most of the farmers, they didn't even go to the farm.
We are coming with a stiffer law that will ensure that anybody found guilty in terms of this banditry and criminality will be given a life sentence or a death sentence, because that is the only way we can move this country forward.
The ongoing military operations have rekindled the hope of farmers as they commence activities for the 2020 farming season. This therefore necessitated the distribution of farming inputs to maize farmers in the FCT.
So there is need for us to create synergy for the two sides to meet, where we have the producer and the off-taker. I know the CBN is trying to do that, but in a larger perspective, the ministry is playing that role.
The inputs were procured through the Anchor Brewers program with a view to assisting smallholder farmers boost agricultural production. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
Now, residents of Makurdi, the Benue State capital, are now crippled or rather gripped with fear of flood as the rainfall intensifies and the volume of River Benue keeps rising. The people decry the negative impact on their socio-economic well-being and its toll on the ecology and environment. What measures are being put in place to avert flood risk in Makurdi? Godwin Inalebu tells us more.
Many residents in Makurdi, the Benue State capital, suffer untold hardships during rainy season yearly due to flooding that renders them homeless and affects their property.
My mattress, I can't use it, my television, my radio, even my food stuff.
We can't even come outside now. The children, everybody is inside. We have lost so many things.
I inside my shop, food, everything. My gen there inside.
Things we sell, everything got spoiled. We need something to be done by the government.
Since the prediction by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, that Benue State is among the 28 states in the country that will experience flooding this year, the state government says it has made concerted efforts to address the menace. Though many have been recounting their losses since the onset of the rainy season this year, the State Commissioner for Water Resources and Environment, Dondo Ahiri, who expressed the readiness of the state government to mitigate the effects of flood disasters, called for the involvement of federal government, agencies and individuals.
The scope is beyond what the state government alone can handle, and it's not a government alone thing. Residents also need to change their attitude, the practices where they dump garbage and waste in the gutters and in the river channels, thereby blocking them.
It is the hope of the people that dredging of the River Benue and collective collaboration with major stakeholders will bring about permanent solution to the perennial flooding in Benue State. From Makurdi, Godwin Inalebu, NTA News.
Well, thank you, Godwin. Now, joining me in the studio to speak more on the measures put in place to mitigate flood disasters in the country and relief for victims is Mr. Kayode Fagbemi, NEMA, Director of Planning, Research and Forecasting. Mr. Fagbemi, you welcome to NTA International.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, flooding is becoming so much like a perennial thing in Nigeria, and so many efforts have been put in place and so many measures have been put in place rather to mitigate this. How is NEMA addressing this issue this year?
Thank you very much. Flooding is not just becoming perennial, it is perennial in Nigeria. And we are concerned this year, the Director General of NEMA, AVM M.A. Mohammed, retired, is concerned this year that we are going to have this flooding, in the midst of the pandemic, which means it is an incident within an incident.
Yeah.
And it's going to be more difficult, to manage the flooding this year. Therefore, actions, has been taken. One of the first things he did when he resumed just a few months ago was to constitute a committee to draw up a plan on what to do to prepare, mitigate, and respond to the flood. And the plan has one of the things to do to, as form of advocacy to the state government. Mm-hmm. Because we know we can't be in Abuja and control flood at the state level. So what he did was all the local government, the 36 local government, including the FCT minister, have been written. He wrote a letter to them telling them the local government that will be affected based on the annual flood outlook released by Nigerian Hydrological Services, as well as the seasonal rainfall prediction released by NIMET. So based on this, all the governors have been written. But that's not enough. He has also gone to do advocacy. He has visited 3 states already. He visited Kogi State, he visited Edo State, and Anambra State. And he's planning to visit all the state governors, you know, with the support of our partners, especially the military. He's been able to move to visit these states to ensure that the state government are able to do, you know, carry out proactive actions. Like all the drains, you know, especially at the state headquarters, the local government headquarters, should be cleared where we have flash flood. Then those living along the floodplain, like I just heard now in Benue, the people have encroached to the floodplain. They should move away to high ground. And then we should also make sure that we are preparing, because no matter how you prepare, some people may still be affected. We are preparing to ensure that we can respond properly in this pandemic, so that there will be social distancing if we have to have IDP camp. So the agency is pre-positioning relief materials, things like camps, mattresses, you know, mats and all that can help the people.
All right, Mr. Fagbemi, talking about this flood thing, it's a yearly thing, as we said, and it seems as if the public is not so much carried along in trying to mitigate this, talking about education and enlightening them so much to get off this place before the flood starts. How far have you gone in this?
Okay, we've gone, because the type of flood we have, you know, in Nigeria, flash flood, riverine flood, and flood associated with dams. We have worked with dam managers. We've pleaded with them to release water early enough. And if they release, maybe, you know, early enough, we won't have, there won't be need, you know, to release excess water in August or September. But in addition, we are doing a lot of advocacy, jingles, radio, you know, televisions, adverts and all that to warn the people, and more will be done. The fact is that this has to be done at the state and local government level, because the people who build on the floodplain were enabled by the development control of those states. And so we are ensuring that all our zonal offices are working with the SEMAs, and that the state governors are able to direct their SEMAs to take actions.
All right. Now, you can see why your director will be going around the state to see the governors. Now, talking about the flood victims, what else can you say about, or how does NEMA tries to handle such, you know, victims, talking about those whose farmlands have been destroyed and homes and, you know, so many other valuables? Such challenges are almost yearly.
Yes, we can only bring succor to them. The National Emergency Management Agency is not an insurance company, you know. So the people, we are telling them they should insure their houses. You have flood insurance. You transfer your risk. We can only bring succor to them by keeping them in a safe place during flooding, and then giving them food, blanket, mattresses, keep them safe. Then after flood, they go back. But what can be done permanently is that we remove them. They must be relocated from those floodplains. I mean, there's little we can do. We can maybe give some materials that can help them rebuild their communities, houses. But as I said, we are not an insurance company that have to repay them and compensate them.
Right, Mr. Fagbemi, thank you so much for coming to NTA International and sharing your views with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to do more advocacy.
Now, moving on now, Nigeria records 16 deaths from coronavirus as India clamps down on black market for COVID-19 drug remdesivir, that is. Let us join Adebola Brooks this Sunday for this and more on Global Update.
Amnesty International says more than 3,000 healthcare workers have died of the new coronavirus, a situation that raises concerns about unsafe working conditions, low pay, long working hours, and violence against medical workers in some countries, with Russia having the highest number of fatalities. Meanwhile, 2 experimental coronavirus vaccines by German and U.S. biotech firms have received the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's fast-track designation. The vaccines BNT162b1 and BNT162b2 are the 2 most advanced of the 4 vaccines being developed by the companies. And India has taken steps to clamp down on black marketers for remdesivir, an antiviral drug that has been authorized by European Commission for the treatment of COVID-19. On the black markets, the life-saving drug is being sold at exorbitant prices, which are even 10 times the costs. On the COVID-19 dashboard of the World Health Organization at about 7 p.m. Nigerian time, 13,213,308 persons have been infected with coronavirus globally. 572,903 deaths and 7,635,596 recoveries. On the African continent, 13,238 people have lost their lives to the dreaded coronavirus out of the 594,841 confirmed cases, while 297,480 recoveries have been recorded. With 571 new confirmed cases reported by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Nigeria now has 32,558 positive cases, 740 deaths, and 13,447 recoveries, leaving the country with 18,371 active cases. I am Adebola, Brooksland Sunday.
Well, many thanks, Adebola. You're watching the news on NTA International. We're reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria. We'll now take a break. Stay with us.
With the lockdown due to COVID-19, the rising incidences of sexual and gender-based violence is alarming. Currently, NAPTIP receives reports on cases of spousal battery and abuse, incest, rape, defilement of minors, sodomy, among others. Sexual and gender-based violence destroys lives. If you are a victim, break the culture of silence. Report to NAPTIP for immediate action. If you are not a victim, but know one, save a life by reporting, and all reports will be treated in confidence.
Report sexual and gender-based violence cases to these hotlines: 0803-220-3462, 0818-384-6635. Sexual Offenders Register Hotline, 0703-0000-203. Social media platforms and iReport app. This message is brought to you by NAPTIP with support from the Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program, ROLAC, with funding by the European Union.
Well, thank you for being there. Now, the coronavirus pandemic has been described as a serious national security issue which Nigeria and other nations of the world are trying to overcome. This was the consensus of Minister of Health, Dr. Osagi Ihanire, and the Director General, NCDC, during lectures to mark the 2020 Health Week at the National Institute for Security Studies in Abuja. Austin Anyebe reports.
The pandemic is seen as a national security issue as many nations of the world, including Nigeria, lacked adequate health infrastructure to tackle the virus from onset. Minister of Health Dr. Osagi Ihanire, on the topic the coronavirus pandemic, how prepared was Nigeria, said it took many countries significant time to overcome the earlier shock, but it's now on course, confronting it headlong. This is enabled by research, while abiding by the treatment and management protocols set out by the World Health Organization.
COVID-19 turned out to be a particular exception to the cycle, and there has shaken up the health systems of many countries.
Measures, he said, are being put in place to upgrade the primary health care centers across the country, as well as improve secondary and tertiary health institutions to cope with the increasing health challenges.
We have now expanded the sample collection sites to all general hospitals. The protocol has been set, the training has been done, and the materials have been provided, and then the logistics for collecting and recovering the samples and doing the central testing, which will greatly improve and increase the capacity and the throughput of the PCR machines we have on ground at the moment.
Director General of NCDC, Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu, said more needs to be done to centralize the health system in the country to allow for standards and evolving regulations on environmental practices. He said the ease of lockdown by the government does not connote reduction in the spread of the virus, but a means to averting imminent national economic and food security crisis in the country.
Nigeria has done fairly well, considering its size, its complexity, its population, to respond. And you will see that, yes, We've had consistently increasing numbers, but we haven't had the exponential increase that we have seen in other countries. And critically, at NCDC, we work in collaboration with all our global partners, World Health Organization, the Africa Center for Disease Control, to continuously improve our response. And it is through this partnership that we can come together as a global health community to solve this problem that every other country in the world is facing.
The 2020 Health Security Week, which had participants from 18 federal agencies and others from the Gambia and Ghana, is organized by the Department of State Services and the National Institute for Security Studies. In Abuja, Austin Anyebe, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the reconstitution of the 5-member board of the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas, NLNG, and the Boni Gas Transport Limited. Former Minister of Petroleum Edmond Dokuro is the chairman of the NLNG board, while Henry Ikem, Obi Rabiu Suleiman, GMD NNPC Melekari, the permanent secretary of the Petroleum Ministry, Bitrus Nabasu, are members. On the board of the Boni Gas Transport Limited, Edmond Dokuro is president, while Doyin Akinyenju, Abdul Abba, GMD of the NNPC Melekari, and the permanent secretary of the Petroleum Ministry, Bitrus Nabasu, are members. A statement by the Minister of Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva, enjoins members of the two boards to decide their responsibilities in line with the progressive stance of President Muhammadu Buhari. And the All Progressive Congress has assured all governorship aspirants on the party's platform in the Ondo State election of transparent pre-election activities that will prevent the party from litigation. Secretary Caretaker and Extraordinary Convention Committee of APC Senator John Apan Udohdehe reaffirmed this while presenting the report of the Governorship Screening Committee to the Appeal Committee at the party's National Secretariat. Chairman of the APC on the Governorship Appeal Committee, Umar Lawan Karetu, said the committee will critically analyze the report of the Screening Committee and ensure fair hearing and consideration to the presentations by all the 12 governorship aspirants. And the Nigerian military says the air component of the Operation Hadarin Daji has attacked another armed bandit camp in the southwestern part of Kuyambana Forest in Zamfara State, neutralizing scores of their fighters. The Directorate of Defense Media Operations says this was achieved through airstrikes executed on the 10th of July 2020 after human intelligence reports and series of reconnaissance missions established the hideout of ISWAP elements and fighters, that is, under the notorious armed bandit kingpin Dogo Gede. Several bandits who attempted to flee on foot and on about 15 motorcycles were mopped up in follow-up attacks by knife fighter platforms. Sources later revealed that several of the bandits were neutralized and their motorcycles destroyed as a result of the airstrikes. The Armed Forces of Nigeria sincerely appreciates the continued support and cooperation of citizens towards ending banditry, terror, and other crimes. And the Nigerian Army has reacted to a purported 2020-2021 recruitment form circulating on a fake portal. A statement by the Assistant Director of Army Recruitment, Resettlement and Reserve, Major Nasima Essien, wishes to notify applicants that the portal for the 80th regular recruitment intake has not been opened. Major Essien noted that the message is a disclaimer urging the public to be aware of fraudsters and scammers. And the attention of the Nigerian police force has been drawn to a viral video showing a security officer meting out inhuman treatment to a man in clear violation of his rights. In the video, the security officer was seen stamping his feet on the neck and head of a man lying helplessly on the floor. The Inspector General of Police, after painstakingly fact-checking and examining the video, hereby states that the incident did not take place anywhere in Nigeria. In a statement by the Force Public Relations Officer Frank Mba, says the Inspector General of Police, IGP Adamu, calls on citizens to discountenance the video as a clear mischief meant to stir up ill feeling towards security agencies in Nigeria. He assures of the commitment of the Nigerian police force to always respect and uphold the rights of the citizenry. And a power surge on Monday morning at the last floor of the World Trade Center Central Business District, Abuja, accused a rather caused panic amongst residents who had mistaken the incident for a fire outbreak. Information from an eyewitness indicates that the incident was caused by a break in circuit at the operating system in one of the rooms at the top floor of the center. The FCT Fire Service, however, responded to the distress call by putting the situation under control. Elias Onoto Yakubu reports.
Around 10:30, so I was called out from the motor. I saw people running around. What is the problem? They said this place is starting fire. So how are people going to enter the place?
Fire is under control. There's no damage in the system. It happened up the rooftop, and our firefighting system fight the fire like you respecting a critical infrastructure building.
Although security operatives at the center refused our crew access into the premises, operatives of the FCT Fire Service at the Church Gate Outpost responded to a distress call put to them. General Manager Operations Ibukun Adeogun assured that there is no cause for alarm as the situation has been put under control.
Our system deployed, the sprinkler system, which is internal, deployed and put up the small fire. So there is no serious damage.
The fire service operative assured that the cause of the power surge will be made known to the public upon completion of investigation. Iliasu Onotu Yakubu, NTA News.
Now some bit of sports. International Basketball Federation lifts suspension on competitions. Olumide Ogunsola is our guide on sports update.
The Nigerian youth represent a critical component in propelling the world towards attaining the Sustainable Development Goals, and as such, handing the National Theatre in Lagos to investors for redevelopment into Lagos Creative and Entertainment Center was pivotal to actualize this goal of President Muhammadu Buhari. Minister of Youth and Sports Development Sunday Dare, who was part of the move, lauded the initiative which he described as vaccine against multi-area challenges of unemployment of Nigerian youth.
The potentials of this four-component new national theatre is massive in job creation, talent discovery and development, revenue generation, and as an innovation and technology hub.
And in football, the board of the Nigerian Women Football League has encouraged club sides to prepare well ahead of the 2020-2021 season. As activities will resume immediately, authorities lift the ban on sporting activities in Nigeria. While calling for strict adherence to COVID-19 preventive measures, the chairperson of the Nigerian Women Football League, Aisha Falode, assured that Nigeria will soar at the maiden edition of the CAF Women's Champions League, among other goals of the country.
We want to win it. We are not mincing word about it, which is why we have also taken it upon ourselves now to say we will play the full season.
And in another development, the Authentic Nigerian Football Supporters Club has unveiled Nasimat Azan, popularly known as Mama Asna, as its brand ambassador. The president and patron of the club promised the 77-year-old grandmother an all-expenses paid trip to the Emirates Stadium. And from the English Premier League, Manchester City will now play in the Champions League next season after the Court of Arbitration for Sport (CAS) overturned the club's 2-year ban from European football. City were handed the suspension by UEFA's club financial control body in February for serious breaches of club licensing and financial fair play regulations. With sports update, Olumide Ogunsola, NTA News.
And the update concludes the news on NTA International. We thank you so much for watching. I am Yusuf Nadabu Usman saying remember to connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. Stop.